So Adam's with us tonight to do APRS program. Thank you for coming.
Sure.
Thanks for your time.
Sure.
All yours.
So again, my name's Adam Mahnke, KC2ANT. If anybody looks on the APRS map, I'm everywhere. I have several SSIDs, which I'll explain here in a little bit. Some of them are listed across the bottom. My email is listed there across the bottom. My email is in most of my APRS Beacon comments. They're a different email, but they both go to the same place. So feel free to reach out to me for anything related to APRS. I can't guarantee that I can answer it, but I can find resources and help you get connected with people that can answer just about every question that both people have about this. Tonight is, I'm trying really hard to not be soapboxy, but there's going to be a little bit of that. So tonight is not a basic, this is the very basics of APRS. I'm not going to explain to you the package structure. I want to talk about how do we leverage it. It's a 1980s technology in the 2020s. So what is APRS? Bob Ruinga is the author of APRS, and this was something that he developed for the U.S. Navy. And yes, it was developed as a resource tracking. It quickly was able to be transformed into something much, much more than just tracking resources. There's some other information up there, historical information I'm not going to read to you, other than there is a map out there on the web about APRS frequency. So if those of you that travel widely, go to Europe, go other places in the world, APRS frequency is not standard worldwide. So make sure if you're going to play APRS somewhere else in the world that you check your frequency. But 144.39 is the North American and several other places standard frequency for APRS on RF. But everything is linked globally through the internet, provided that infrastructure is enabled. One of the other things that I wanted to highlight is internet is not required. Bob and several other folks put together this attempt to send a packet via RF from the south end of the Appalachian Trail all the way to the north end, so Georgia to Maine. And they do it quite frequently. There's an event every year. I think more often than not, they are successful. They do not use internet to do this. They do not use the standard beacon paths to do that. They have their own path set up. The website is right there. I'm happy to share the PowerPoint to go up wherever, so there'll be clickable links within the PowerPoint. But that's a pretty cool event that I've not participated in, but it's always interesting to read the fallout after that. So APRS stands for Automatic Packet Reporting System. This is a packet protocol. AX25, frame communications, don't ask me to explain the packet structure to you. There's other places to do that. But it is not location tracking. Is that a use? Yes. That is one of the most common uses. Yes. That is not everything and all that it is. It is not just following people around on a map. Tactical, real-time sharing and communications. We're looking for situational awareness. We're looking for information sharing to try to get a situational awareness of your immediate area. Think about the points of interest that are on your GPS. We can use APRS to do that same functionality. I have some of that set up within the area. Some of it is timely, like the Hamfest that Kirk was talking about earlier, that there will be an object that will go live with talking frequency about a month before the Hamfest, advertising an on RF for people that are traveling through the area. Campers that might be in the area that are ham radio operators that have APRS, now they will have that. It'll pop up on their screen. It allows text messaging, one-to-one, one-to-many, many-to-one. Lots of different ways to message, but it allows global via text messaging. Again, you may not have internet where you are, like up in the Adirondacks, but if you can get into a digipeater that's within range of an internet-connected device, you can now send text messages back and forth with other APRS users, and we'll talk about it a little bit later, but to cell phone users as well. That functionality is back. Access to a lot of queries, responses, different information servers. and just there's so much stuff, and there's several people that are just constantly developing new things that use this program. Somebody read to me Bob Ruinga's goal. Right there, last line.
Can't you read it?
I can.
Oh,
You don't want to listen to my voice the whole time. Somebody else read to me, please.
can't see it.
And all
Like
the
this.
communications and local information updates, not just vehicle tracking.
Thank you, sir. What can I send with APRS? I can send station information, position, speed. This is all stuff that we think about for tracking vehicles. I can send objects from a control station to share information on repeaters, Hamfest field day locations, talking frequencies. Last year's field day had talking frequencies built into the packet that was out there on the APRS map. The Hamfest will have the talking frequency. Anything that we do, we can put in, Jerry and I did the Cuba Lake Triathlon and AIDS Ride and Skunk Cabbage Run, and threw all kinds of objects on the map, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But it's about sharing appropriate information to anybody passing through the area. Messaging, we can get weather. Telemetry, Hojo, I don't know how much balloon telemetry you ever did over APRS. I know you use Whisper a lot, but I know that telemetry is a capability. There's a couple of weather stations in the area. Matt has one. I don't know the gentleman's name over by the RC Plane Club on 79, but there's a weather station over there. If a road closure pops up, State Route 228 had a couple of closures a few years ago, and I put road closures out as objects, just so that people that were in the area would know that. Natural disaster data. There's severe flooding in an area, right? If our races team gets activated, as an operator, I can be in the field and tag a floating object real quick. Net control can pick that object up, convert it to what they have, and then transmit that out for everybody that's out there on the field to be able to know where there's flooding and where they should avoid. Or where's my closest first aid station? Where's this? Where's that? Where are all of my tactical resources? It really is your imagination. And my imagination is only so big. There's people out there doing things that are just amazing to me on APRS, and I try to just do what little we can in our little area. Some technical references. How APRS works. That is a subsite for the APRS Foundation. When Bob Ruinga passed, and then Lynn, don't ask me to butcher his last name, KJ4ERJ, the author of APRS ISC 32, when they both became silent keys, the APRS gurus have really fallen silent. There's a bunch of us out there pulling support, but there's only two APRS apps that are in development, one for desktops of various flavors and one for mobile devices. All the rest of them have fallen by the wayside, and nobody's picking up. That code has been put out there for open source. Anybody that wants to pick it up, it's out there, it's available. The family would love for somebody to pick it up, continue on Lynn's work, but APRS Foundation was formed with Lynn after Bob's passing. But like I said, they've kind of gone silent. They say they're doing things behind the scenes, but I haven't seen a lot of communications with them other than onesie twosie with individuals. APRS.org was Bob's original page. That is there for historic purposes only, but there is a lot of good information on there. I would have loved, I got a chance to talk to Bob on the air one day driving through Pennsylvania, and that was great. I would have loved to have met him in person. He was a very smart individual. Again, APRS AX25 frame packets, normally at 1200 baud, which is what you hear on the desk with several of you have radios. That's a 1200 baud. There are places that are using 300 down on HF. The Northwest has a 9600 UHF network that, as far as I know, is still in play. I tried it in this area. It didn't really work all that well with our terrain. The big thing to remember is it is a 2 meter simplex frequency, and you're sending packets at 1200 baud. Again, the frequency is standard. So nationwide, you should have coverage if you're driving around. So whenever I go traveling with the camper, I've always got APRS going, looking for various things. Just want to make sure I get everything. I'm not, like I said, I wasn't going to read to you. Okay. So some high level infrastructure, some of the things that we're going to talk about. We've got digipeaters, we've got iGates, we've got the APRS IS or the internet stream, and then we have individual stations, and I've broken those down into RF only, internet only, and then a mixture. So I have an RF only station right here. I have an internet only station running on my computer, and then I have my phone tied to this radio running both. So I have a digipeater and an iGate, these two pieces of equipment. And then I have another RF only device that's over here. Digipeaters. So digipeaters and iGates are the backbone of the APRS infrastructure. When you start thinking about cell phone towers, radio towers, repeaters, these are the backbone of the infrastructure for the APRS network. It is a digital repeater. Now, unlike our voice repeaters, it does not receive on one frequency and simulcast on a second frequency. It takes a packet of a specified length allowance, stores it, and immediately spits it back out. So it doesn't store it like WinLink. It stores that packet length, and as soon as that packet length is hit, it immediately spits it back out. But I can take this and get into my digipeater on Connecticut Hill, and then that digipeater will spit that information back out. So it's just like an HT to the repeater. Now I have more range through the repeater. This is the same concept. Wide area coverage digipeaters are typically co-located with voice repeaters, like my Connecticut Hill one is. It's at the 9.7 site. They are normally RF only. There's no internet out there right now. And even when if and when we do get internet at that tower site, that digi will not have internet. It doesn't need it. Between my home station and the Cornell digi, they have that internet connection, and we'll talk about that. They often hear, so if anybody looks at the APRS map, KE2NDW is up in Waterloo. The Connecticut Hill and his digipeaters talk all the time. N3 TTJ down in Pennsylvania, he's got several digis down that way and several other stations down that way. My Connecticut Hill repeater talks to them all the time. There's 100 and change miles between those digipeaters. The next one that we do is a fill-in digipeater. So we've got a shadow. Everybody knows the 9.7's got a shadow, right? So, but to try to fill that in, we put in a fill-in digipeater. Cornell Amateur Radio Club, before Hojo was in charge, was kind enough to allow myself, when I was in charge, to put in an APRS digipeater. Hojo's been kind enough to let me keep it up and running and fix radios for me when they break. So they're normally smaller installations. So the Cornell Amateur Radio Club. This one is paired with an iGate, and it also fills in some of that downtown area that the Connecticut Hill site just can't see. And if anybody's got questions, just stop me, because I would just ramble and ramble and ramble.
You said the 9.7 has a shadow? What do you mean?
If you go up along the west side of the lake and you get tucked in up against the hill, you can't get into the 9.7 very well. That's what an RF shadow. So because my digi on Connecticut Hill is in the same area that has that same RF shadow, that same RF dead spot. By bringing in that fill-in digi, it helps fill in that blank. Because if I send a beacon out, it's into Cornell's, and then Cornell spits it back out, it can then get to the Connecticut Hill one where it may not have before.
Question on that, could you use a parasitic J-pole to fill in the shadow if you had it cross in the shadow?
I mean, if you had a specific use case where you wanted to do that, you could. We try to do omnis. I always do omnis on all of my APRS stuff, and then if we have a hole, we try to fill it with another one. So I mean, anything you can do with a voice repeater or a home station, you can do with an APRS.
We had years ago, we had a fellow over in Hartford Mills, I think it was, and he was in the shadow of the hill where he was.
Yep.
So we talked and I told him, try putting a J pole up on the hill across, he put one up there and then he was solid. It was a parasitic radiator.
Yeah, so if it was a home station and you wanted to do something like that, absolutely. I wouldn't do that on top of Connecticut Hill, but if somebody was over in that area and I didn't have Cornell, if somebody was over in that area trying to get into the network, they could absolutely do something like that. All right, eye gates. An eye gate indicates it is connected to the internet. It is an internet gateway. It allows passage of the RF traffic to go to the internet stream. So if I beacon with this radio right now, it gets picked up by this one and gets dumped to the internet through my phone. So Charlene could message somebody in Europe right now by using that connection. RF to an iGate through the internet to another iGate on the other side and come back out. So I can grab my tablet right now, fire it up, running APRS Droid as an internet-only station, or my laptop as an internet-only station. As long as the station I'm trying to message has a recent beacon and a location and a pathway, the IS stream, the internet stream, the iGates will spit it back out in that same pathway to go back to that person. So if I go to Gettysburg and somebody wants to send me a message on the SSID that I'm down in Gettysburg, as long as I'm in range of an iGate and you're in range of an iGate, the internet picks up that middle portion. The majority of our APRS software that's out there that you're going to find is bidirectional for messaging. And that's what a bidirectional iGate is. So a unidirectional iGate will take stuff from the RF and will dump it to the internet, but it will not take anything from the internet and spit it back out. A bidirectional iGate will put messaging back out on RF. There are some APRS softwares out there that will allow you to take beacons from the internet stream and put it out on the RF network. You have to be very, very careful about how you do that. And there's slides about that later, but I want to bring that up. If you're going to run an iGate, please reach out to me about best practices to try to reduce jamming up this 1200 baud simplex channel with useless information or duplicate information. All right, so more about the IS stream. There's tier 1 and tier 2 servers. You have to have an APRS passcode. The email that I sent out about tonight, if you're bringing an internet-only device, make sure you have your passcode and make sure you've connected. If you need help with that after this, that's fine. Or email me and I can help you do that. But basically, the tier 1 server says, hey, this is the call sign, this is the passcode, are they valid? And it says yes. And then, okay, now I load balance you into a tier 2 server that has the least amount of stuff on it and then connects you to that. There's a lot of stuff out there for tier 2, but if you just connect to NAAPRS2.net, or I go to rotate.aprs2.net, and then that allows me to be load balanced. So I already explained all of this. So that's where APRS.fi. Everybody familiar with that website? So APRS.fi gets 90% of its data from iGates. It takes the data from this, dumps it to the internet, and then just displays it on a map. Now, if you start digging around that website, there's a lot of history there. Years and years of history of location, telemetry, messages. All of that stuff is out there and stored for years and years and years. So think about that a little bit. There's also you can overlay stuff. You can use GPS. You can enter stuff manually. Information server, we're connected to APRS. So when we get into some of the other messaging and queries that we can do later, this kind of information is where those queries go to find their information. So one of the ones that we'll send later is find this call sign, and it'll go hit one of these internet servers and say, hey, when was the last time that you heard or saw this call sign and SSID? And it'll spit that information back. SOTA reports, POTA reports, you can do all of that kind of stuff through APRS. I'm not into either one of those modes, but I know that it's possible and I can help you find the resources if that's something you want to do. Okay. Individual stations. My God, there are so many APRS options out there. APRS.fi has, you can sign into the website, you can interact through the website. I believe they are the iPhone application. APRS Droid, APRS IS Mobile, which was another one that Lynn did, which is no longer relevant. Um, there's there's been a few flavors out there. Um, Mobile phones, tablets, PC, Mac, Yak, yet another APRS client is the one that's still currently in development that runs on Windows, Linux, and he is currently working on trying to deploy it as a Mac as well if he hasn't already. Um, Handhelds, there's various flavors of those that I see around the room. Jerry's got some trackers over there that are handheld, mobiles, websites, and then you start tying all of this stuff together. So my home station is a radio, an old Cantronics 9612 TNC tied with a serial cable into my desktop running APRS IS32, which is the same thing that Cornell is. The Connecticut Hill Digipeater is an old Elenco radio tied with another Cantronics TNC. There's so many ways. You can get sound card programs and make an APRS radio out of a Baofeng if you want to. What's that?
Using Direwolf.
Yeah, Direwolf is something I haven't played with, but it's something that I know is out there. There are so many different ways to get into this. I'm happy to help point you in the right direction. I'm a Kenwood fanboy, have been for years. So that's me. But you can quickly go down a rabbit hole with trying to do APRS. I'm offering myself as a resource. I'm sure that Jerry would be happy to answer questions and whatnot as well. So let's talk about SSIDs. I mentioned this a few times. I have several. An SSID is Service Set Identifier, Service Set ID. In APRS, you can have multiple stations. As I mentioned earlier, I've got 3 sitting here. There is no standard to what an SSID is, no written rule. This is the general guidance. This is the generally accepted pattern. -1s and 2s. Some people say you shouldn't be running a -1. Some hotspots, when you go into them with a mobile radio or a portable radio, don't give you the option to set an SSID, so it automatically just goes with your default call sign. So that's why Connecticut Hill is a -1. That's why my home station is a -2, because sometimes I'll get one that just pops up without an SSID. 5 and 10 tend to be internet only or IV only. 7 is the most generally accepted portable, so HT. 9 is the most generally accepted mobile for primary mobile. 8 is typically the alternate mobile. They say watercraft. 13 is generally weather stations. 14 is generally large vehicles. So when I'm hauling my RV, I switch from 9 to 14 because 9 is a fire truck, and I'm not a fire truck when I'm hauling the RV. So now I'm an RV. 15 is generally for HF only, but eventually you're going to run out of these if you dive into it as much as I do. So usually I've got 3 different HDs that are all -7s, but I don't run them all at the same time. So again, generally accepted. There's no SSID police. According to the AX25 protocol, these are supposed to be the limit of SSIDs, but with the advent of some of the software programs, we are seeing things out there like the -B for some of the hotspots, or the -99, or this or that and the other thing, which was not part of the AX25 protocol, but for some reason they're working. Most HTs, most APRS native radios won't allow you to do that, anything other than 0 through 15. This is one of the most common questions that I get. When I don't have a GPS, I don't know how to tie it to my radio. You don't need one. I set up Ross Boyer's radio with APRS in his rig, and I just set a manual location. So you can set your location manually. For Ross, I set it in the general area of his home to allow him to get some coverage because we did put in some filters. It's called position ambiguity. So you have your GPS coordinate. If you stop filling in the last 3, 4, whatever sections of the GPS coordinate, it brings you to that centerpiece. So if you look at my home station, it's not on my house. It's in the general area. My digipeater on Connecticut Hill, it's not on the tower. It's actually down at the corner of the roadway. It doesn't have to be exact, but it allows you to still receive situational awareness and tactical messages. It allows you to receive information. It allows you to receive repeater objects. It allows you to receive all of that same information that everybody else is getting. We just can't follow you on a map, which isn't the purpose anyway, right? All of the rest of this information still applies whether you have a GPS or not. So even if you're static, everything else that we're going to talk about, it applies. All right. Best practices. This is the new Kenwood 750 that I'm drooling over and waiting patiently for it to come out. So best practices, you want to limit your RF beacons to be useful to other RF travelers. So if I'm driving around advertising a repeater, I should be heard by stations that could potentially reach me on that repeater, or that could send me a message and say, hey, come talk to me on this channel. People in Georgia don't need to know that I'm traveling on 86 at 70 miles an hour in this direction. I'm just logging up that 1200 baud simplex channel. Okay. So you want to send your position information. If you have a GPS, great. If you don't, it's a general area. If you are listening to a repeater or a simplex channel, please advertise your voice frequency, but it has to be formatted correctly. And this is one of the things that I see a lot of mistakes on with some of the people that are trying to do this. The H in so many repeater objects is lowercase. In order for radios that support an auto QSY or auto tune function to a repeater frequency, it has to be in this format: megahertz times 3, kilohertz times 3, capital M, capital H, and lowercase z, space, your tone offset, which you see there, the 9.4 says C. So a T means that it requires a tone to get into. A C means that it also transmits a tone. So you can now set up your repeater for tone or your radio for tone squelch. And then the offset. So the 060 is for 60 kilohertz down, the standard for 2 meter. One of the other ones that we'll look at is actually minus or plus 500, 5 megahertz. Notice the 103 doesn't have the decimal 5. I only need the first 3 digits before the decimal because there are no duplicates of the first 3 before the decimal anywhere in the list, even though there's all the 71.9 and 110 or 71, whatever that is, 71.9 and 110. There are no duplicates within that kilohertz or that hertz range with a decimal point that are in the same bracket. Does that make sense? I'm struggling with that for some reason. So you only need the first 3. If you can monitor 144.39 megahertz at the same time, and you put a 100 hertz tone squelch on it, anyone who's transmitting a tone will break your squelch, and now you know you're within simplex range. Every year, because we traveled around, we go camping at least twice a year for a week-long trip. I end up with half a dozen simplex contacts just by people breaking my APRS tone squelch. I call them on the APRS frequency. Hey, you're in simplex range. Can we go to this frequency, or do you have a repeater that we can go to? and then have a quick QSO, right? That's acceptable. It's a packet frequency, but to make that quick voice contact to say, hey, we're within range. Can we go here to have a QSO? That's acceptable on the 144.39 frequency. Some way, include a way for somebody to be able to get a hold of you. That's why if I don't have a frequency in my beacon, one of my email addresses is in my beacon. I want the people that I'm driving by to have a way to communicate with me and provide me local information. Hey, you're headed into a sketchy area. You might not want to go there. Or, hey, there's a road out up ahead. That kind of stuff. Some way for people to communicate. I've seen people put cell phone numbers in there. Email tends to be the most common. But if you're going to mix a voice frequency and email, the voice frequency has to come first in that format. I mentioned this before, limit your range to what is needed and useful. If you go in with a wide 2-1 and a wide 1-1 packet path, that will keep you as a general local range. Most of the new radios, the apps, they all have what's called smart beaconing, and it uses proportional math that I don't understand to basically say, if I'm traveling faster, beacon me more often, or if I turn more than this number of degrees, beacon me again, because the dead reckoning of where I should be is now greater than this error. So if my dead reckoned location is more than 1/10 of a mile from where I actually am, there should be another beacon. If you don't have a GPS to do smart beaconing, 3 minutes. Unless you're going to be on the highway for a long time and then drop it down to 1 or 2. Go ahead, Dave.
Will you explain the path designation, why you would want to use one or the something or?
Yep. So wide 2.2 means that I want my packet to be digipeated twice. But I know that I have high level digipeaters in my area. So if my Connecticut Hill digipeats me and then Category TJ down in northern Pennsylvania digipeats me, I'm advertising my presence to people that can't communicate with me. So the 2-1 is for the high level digipeaters that are configured for 2.2. They accept that path. But each time I get digipeated, I drop that second number. So if I go out wide 2-1, I'm going to get repeated by a wide 2.2 digipeater and not digipeated further than that. Or I'm going to get digipeated by a wide 1.1 digipeater and not be digipeated after that. But I have to have both of those in the path in order for that to function. That's the best explanation I can give right now without diving into a lot of the package structure. But basically, we're trying to say, hey, I'm here, but only to people that it's relevant to. Yep, okay. The other, and this is another one, is if you're traveling at high speed, your beacon doesn't need to go out more than every 2 minutes at most. Sometimes 1 if you're like really high speed. If you're at slow speeds, 3 to 5 minutes. Think about it. How long is it going to take me to get beyond 1/10 of a mile from where I was to where I am now? And the shorter the time it takes me to travel that distance, the more often I should beacon. But it's a 1200 baud simplex channel that you're sharing with a lot of other people. So if you're beaconing every 10 seconds, nobody else gets to use the channel. You're going to have packet collisions all the time. It's just going to make a giant mess of the whole region. Let's see. Base station best practices. A lot of this is going to look really familiar. Limit your beacons to those that are useful to an RF traveler. If you're running a digi, what path are you supporting? If you look at the Connecticut Hill digi, it says W2 and then NYN. It will actually support a path of NY22. So if people only want to stay within New York, I think I'm the only one in the region that does that. And then, yeah. Talk about the location not being exactly on it where it actually is. What do I support? Make sure your icon is appropriate. There's about 600 plus icons out there. Am I a Digi? Am I an iGate? Am I a portable? Am I a fire truck? Am I an RV? Am I a pickup truck? Am I a police station because we're running a races event and I'm stationed at a police station? Am I an EOC? Am I a weather station? That there's the options are near endless. Internet linking nodes. We'll kind of come back to that here in a little bit. Again, some way for another station to contact you if you're not a manned station. So if you're sitting there and you can accept messages, then you can accept messages. If you message my home station, you'll get an automatic reply that says, "This is an unmanned station. Please contact this email address." Emails, phones, again, this is all very similar to the mobile stations. How often do you actually need to beacon from a base station? Depends on what you're doing. Am I actively involved in a weather event net that's utilizing APRS? I may need to beacon more often. If I'm just out there as a digipeater and an iGate, my home station set up for every 20 minutes or half an hour. My station running on my laptop right here is set for 30 minutes. How often do I actually need to advertise my presence? Again, it depends on what you're doing. But the key is you want to think minutes, not seconds. So some of the other ones that are out there, and this is where I get a little soapboxy. It's all cool seeing stuff that's out there on the map. It's cool to see your own call sign. It's cool to see all that stuff. From an RF perspective, is it useful to the traveler? When I'm driving around in my RV, the packets that I see come in on my radio, I want to be useful to me. I don't care that there's a milliwatt hotspot in somebody's house that I can't use unless I'm sitting in their driveway. From an RF traveler perspective, right? So just that kind of stuff to think about. If it's not useful to people that are traveling through the area, it's noise, it's QRM, it's interference. You're tying up that channel that you don't need to. Internet only. Again, this should all look, it's pretty much copy and paste from the previous slides, right? Again, minutes, not seconds. I cannot tell you how many APRS droid instances I've seen driving across the country that are beaconing every 5 seconds, because what they want is this nice, pretty smooth line that they can then go back and look at, or they can share with their family members, but they want this nice, pretty smooth line that follows every curve of the road. If you are an internet only device and you are traveling somewhere that you have no idea what the RF environment is like, someone may be doing what I'm doing at Cornell and taking this packet and dumping it to RF. We'll talk about that again in a little bit, but you need to think about the impact that you can have. Even though you're an internet only station, there are people out there that take internet only traffic and dump it to RF. So I talk about Cornell doing that. I have filters in place that filter out a lot of stuff. So the Jerry's and Jeff's and the other Jerry's and my mobile hotspot, or the mobile hotspots that we use for digital voice communications, none of those icons or position packets make it from the internet to RF via the Cornell iGate. It's not useful to the RF traveler to filter them out. You also must be internet only and within the confines of a square that encompasses Tompkins County, and not be a certain symbol, and have only, the timing on the beacons. If you don't meet this, the path filter, it won't send. And I'm constantly keeping an eye on that. Every time I'm driving through, I'm like, all right, that's a cool station. See, it says APRS droid in the comment. All right, where did that come from? Did it come from the Cornell repeater? Did it come from somebody else in the area? Did it come from wherever? Maybe they have it tied to a radio. I don't know. So if I see an RF path only, I now know that they have it tied to another radio. Again, trying to reduce the interference and trying to make sure this stuff is useful for the people that are traveling through the area. So I've talked about this a lot. If you choose to set up an iGate at your home and you choose to, and their software allows you to take internet traffic and dump it to RF, you have to be very careful. You are now responsible for that RF transmission. So if I'm doing things that I shouldn't be with my internet only device and your iGate is transmitting me, if I'm beaconing every 3 seconds, you're the one that's now responsible, even though I'm the offender. Talk about this. Some internet connected hotspots are very chatty. Seconds chatty. Like they're very, very chatty. Make sure you test your filters. There's a website out there that will help you with filters. Somebody timing me for half an hour. So there are filters out there. Again, send me an email, reach out to me. I'm more than happy to help with this because I'm very interested in providing useful RF data without clogging the system with useless stuff. Talked about all of this already. It excludes the black diamonds. It excludes a couple of specific call signs. And that includes, so for whatever reason, my Connecticut Hill Digi and the Cornell Digi don't always hear each other via RF. There's no reason for my iGate to take the internet instance of my Connecticut Hill Digi that got into the internet somewhere else and spit it back out on RF in Tompkins County. There's no point. So I've blocked my own call sign from being spit back out from IS to RF because it's pointless. I have added some I don't care where you are in the world, spit it out, like Hojo's balloons. Every time you guys do a balloon launch, I try to add the specific SSIDs so that the APRS IS stream will come out on the RF because, you know, your kids may be interested in knowing where the balloon is on a portable. Or sometimes I'm nosy and I want to listen to it on a portable. But again, if he's sending stuff every 3 seconds, I'm going to block that out. Again, please reach out to me. W2CXM does this on a regular basis. Occasionally into PYIs will also be throwing this information out. He and I chatted a few times about filters and that kind of stuff, but for this general area, it should be pretty well taken care of. Now, if somebody lives over in Speedsville and they want to do this in Speedsville, that'd probably be a benefit to Speedsville. Or if you're in an RF dead zone someplace and you want to establish this kind of thing, just reach out and I'm happy to help. Objects. APRS objects can be darn near anything. I mentioned the 600 combinations of symbols, overlays. There's all kinds of things out there. I'll help you find the layout if you want. Again, make sure it's useful to the travelers. There are, counted the other day, I believe there are 6 amateur radio repeaters and 2 GMRS repeaters within the confines of Tompkins County. Well, I can get that information from Repeater Book. What I want to know is I'm traveling through the area. I'm looking for a spot to park my camper overnight. Is there anybody around that can tell me what is the repeater that I am most likely to make a contact on? Right now, I'm advertising the 9.7, the 9.4, and the KB3 DOL linked repeater on Connecticut Hill because those are the 3 repeaters that I hear the most activity on for the amateur. If people tell me that that's wrong, I just need to know so I can adjust the repeaters. There, in a little bit, we talk about ways that we can pull other repeaters in the area, but those are the three repeaters that me personally, have been most likely to find someone to have a contact with. If somebody disagrees with me, just tell me and I'll change the icons that are advertised. Events. Talked about the Hamfest object earlier. Again, about a month out, I'm going to turn that on. It'll advertise the date, the location, the talk-in frequency. Anything after the talk-in frequency that you guys want, I can add the website, I can add whatever I want, but that talk-in frequency will be the first one, because if I'm traveling through the area, I see that object pop up on my map, I literally hit one button on the face of my radio, and the VFO on the other side of my radio automatically tunes to that, as long as it's configured correctly, which it will be. Did it for field day last year. I'll plan on doing it again this year. If you're running jamborees on the air with scouts, if you're running POTAs, sodas, islands, whatever, again, you can put all that kind of stuff out there. We talked about tactical information earlier. If we start thinking about, we do a special event, or even at the Hamfest, if there's something else that we want to advertise via APRS at the Hamfest, there's the main gate for the Hamfest, there's the VE session, the VE testing location. If we were on a big grounds, like if we were taking over the entire airport, that might be useful. The fairgrounds is pretty small, it's not hard to get around, but if we were on a large location, that might be beneficial, where I can pull up my handheld and say, oh, I'm looking for the VE session, I'm looking through my station list, I am, a tenth of a mile away versus 100 feet, and what direction is it from where I'm standing? There are so many options for objects, direction finding objects, which is something that I really enjoy using. But again, that's a software-based thing. Happy to help with object ideas too, if anybody wants to get into this. So, APRS bots. This thing changes every week. Most of these are staying. So what I want to do is, we're going to talk about these individually, and then I'm going to have you try a few of these with your APRS capable devices. I want to know when the last time that Adam was out with his RV. So I'm going to send a message to Find with, I know he told me in the meeting that he runs -14 for the RV. So I will send a message to Find for KC2ANT-14, and it will spit information back. The POTA activation, I know it exists. I don't know how to work it. Google your friend. Well, DuckDuckGo is your friend more than Google is, but who is? Think about QRZ lookup. You look up a call sign on QRZ. You're looking for the name, the location, whatnot. Who is an APRS bot that will allow you to do that same kind of information. WX bot. I send a message of 14850 to WX bot, and it'll give me back the weather for Ithaca for today. If I send tomorrow to WX bot, it will give me the weather forecast for tomorrow for my last beacon location. MPAD is another weather service along with a lot of other features. I know it exists. I've played with it a little bit. That is a rabbit hole that you will quickly drown in. SMS. So there used to be an SMS gateway. That went defunct for various reasons. NA7Q has spun up another SMS server. You have to go to his website and opt into the service. You go to the website, you opt in, you get a text message, and then anybody can then send you a text message to that phone number.
I think I recall that if you want to send text messages to other people, you have to actually opt in their numbers as well.
Yes.
On that website.
Yes. So when I went to the website, I opted in my phone number and I opted in Charlene's phone number, and then I sent her a text and said, yes, that's me doing that. So anybody that you want to be able to communicate with from APRS to text message, that phone number has to be opted in. Same thing, if there's people that you know that are going to be out in the field that don't have cell service and you want to be able to communicate with them via APRS, your phone number has to be opted in. So any phone number that wants to use this service has to be opted in. You are correct.
Adam,
Yep.
can you initiate a bot request by RF?
Yes.
And so then how does the response come back to you? I don't have APRS, so is it a voice response that comes out by audio or how will it come back to you?
It's APRS messaging. So
So these radios have a digital display on them and it
Correct.
comes out that, okay.
So you have to be able to send a message from an RF only device. It has to be able to get to an internet connected device. So I have to get to an iGate to be able to reach any of these bots.
Sure.
And then same way with messaging. So if David and I were to message and we're 3 states away, RF to iGate through the internet stream to iGate to RF. These are all the same thing. There's only one side that's RF. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, you're sending all of these capitals, you're sending a message to that. So if you want the weather, your receiving station is WX bot. My message is today, tomorrow, a zip code. NPAD has a lot more options. SMS, you're sending a message to a cell phone number. So if somebody wants to send me a text message via APRS, 607-280-1923 is my destination station. And then the message follows. Bulletins, think bulletin boards that you're driving down the road. A bulletin that's set up in an APRS piece of software will simply transmit information at a designated time frame. Severe weather system, cold weather advisory. We could set that up to go out via APRS. So if for some reason the cellular network fails in Tompkins County, I can configure the Cornell Digipeater to be able to pull bulletins from the National Weather Service and spit them back out on RF for APRS users. There are store and forward capabilities out there. I will help you find them. I don't know a lot about them. And server is kind of like Groups.io for APRS messaging. APRS Thursday is a net that uses the AND server. There's AND servers out there for various APRS platforms. There's one out there for 4x4s. There's one out there for Scouts. There's one out there for Yak. There's one out there for APRS. There's a whole bunch of them out there. Same thing with some groups. Various nets. If you send your destination station of ISS and just send next, it'll spit you back the next pass information for your last beacon location. Repeat pulls you the next closest repeater to your last beacon location according to repeater book. It is not formatted correctly. It is formatted the way that it is in repeater book. But if there isn't somebody advertising a repeater object in your area, this is a way to get the closest repeater to you. QRU is kind of a special one. What does QRU mean? Come on, Morse guys.
Yeah, for me.
What do you have for me? So if you send a message to QRU and say info, if somebody sends that right now, you should get back a bunch of codes from a QRU server that is storing information. Remember I said earlier, there's a way to pull the additional repeaters of Tompkins County back. It's through this QRU server. All right. So those of you that have APRS capable radios, try any and all of these red highlighted state destination stations. Find is SSID specific. Who is will take a call sign. Repeat should come up. I don't even know what's going to come up. You're probably the 9-4. And the QRU. So if you send info to QRU, it'll come back with question mark RP70, RP2M, and HFEST. From there, you send back to QRU RP70, and it will spit out the closest up to 5 within 25 miles of your last beacon location 70 centimeter repeaters. That includes the multi-mode on Connecticut Hill. That includes the 448 on Mount Pleasant. That includes the 44405 at Cornell. They will come back to you. What it will do is it won't send you back a message, but it will transmit them as objects that your radio will pick up on. Does anybody else have APRS Droid other than Ellie and I? The stock smart beaconing from APRS Droid is actually pretty decent. The Yaesu radios have several different options for smart beaconing. I would encourage you to choose the first one, unless you're in some kind of special scenario. Kenwood only has one set of smart beaconing available, but you can change it on the fly whenever you want. And you guys can go with extra low power. I've got a digipeater sitting right here on the desk in front of me. It's also an iGate. So I've got -6, I've got -10, the -1 is Connecticut Hill.
Right.
And then -2 is my home station, which I doubt you're gonna be able to reach. Is anybody else aware of any APRS nets that are out there other than APRS Thursday? Emergency communications. I talk about being useful. I talked about MCOMs a couple times. Talked about the RACES team a few times. We want to talk about displaying tactical resources on a map. Okay. It doesn't have to be connected to the internet. We could set up a RACES event and move APRS to 147.57 and have a RF only network of all of this tactical information. You're not limited to this. If you want internet connectivity, you need to be on 144.39. If you want an isolated RF network, anywhere the data is allowed. VHF, UHF, 10 meters, 6 meter, whatever. Okay. We start talking about a RACES team, right? Where are our fire stations? Where are our manned fire stations? Where are the fire stations that are not manned? So I can now put up an object or activate an object for stations that are manned. I can put up fuel stations that are open. So when people start looking for fuel for generators, who has it, who doesn't? If that's data that we collect, we can do that in an APRS object. Law enforcement resources, medical resources. Where's the closest hospital? Where's the closest first aid station? Where's the closest Red Cross tent? Where are my warming centers? Where are my cooling centers? Because the power's out and it's too hot or it's too cold, right? Whatever you can think of that is a tactical resource, you can use objects with APRS to have that information. And it might not be to the general public, but all of this information's on APRS FI as long as you're connected to the internet. So you can publish APRS.FI with a GPS coordinate and share that link. You can filter your APRS FI by call signs. There's ways to do a bunch of different call signs that show just specific call signs on that website. Can we track mobile tactical resources? We already know we can track vehicles. Bike mechanic. How many times are we looking for the bike mechanic, Gary?
Yeah.
All the damn time, right? Where are they? Put a tracker in their vehicle, and now we know where they are. Lead vehicles, SAG vehicles, tail, and bike mechanics. That last time I ran the AIDS ride, that's what was out there for tactical resources. What about water stops? Right? Where are the water stops?
That would be nice to have.
Yeah, we can do that. I manage Cornell's Digi. I'll put it all in there. I just need somebody to tell me where they are and what they are. Special use resources. So a couple years ago, I deployed to Buffalo with my fire department with a tracked ATV. Wouldn't it be nice to know where that kind of resource is?
Internet.
Right? Wouldn't it be nice to know where the paramedics are? Wouldn't it be nice to know where whatever the incident draws? Again, we talked about the severe weather alerts. We can send those out as bulletins. There is a thing called tactical call signs within APRS as well. So basically, I set up tactical call signs for my EOC station, and I transmit the translation from N2FSD-7. Well, that's actually bike mechanic. I can now do that kind of stuff. You want to be able to set yourself up to send a beacon with your contact information, that voice frequency. Remember, the formatting is critical. Kenwood, the Yaesu 350s, 400s, and 500 all have that QSY or tune button. The 5 does not. I don't know about the 70D. The Kenwood 72 does not. The 74 and the 75 do. I'm assuming the 750 will when that comes out. We apparently have 4 minutes for other thoughts, experiences, and comments. I do want to point out Jerry's show and tell for trackers. He's got a lot of different trackers. I misplaced mine. I loaned them out and I never got them back. But there's all kinds of different ways to set up these trackers for, now we actually are tracking technical resources. I care about where they are. But gosh darn it, I'm gonna put that bike mechanic cell phone number in the comment. That way I don't have to look it up. Find them on the map, there's a cell phone number. Questions, comments, concerns, show and tell,